Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Skip Charge podcast episode. I can't remember 12,
We must be
13.
on like 11 or
Um,
12 right now. I think 12. I think 12.
Oh,
no,
sounds
no,
good.
I think 11. I'm gonna check, but because we had the 10th one was the special one with the audience doing the card because it was like 9.5 while we were away.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm 99% sure we're on 11. As you can see, we're fucking pros at this. We're like so organized.
It's definitely 12. It's definitely
Guys,
12.
You'll be like, oh yeah, no, it's definitely like 12 or 13 or whatever one we're on. Either way, you're here, you're listening
I don't
to
know
us.
why I typed in the lookout to go look. But it's like no, it's not on the lookout. It's on Big O's channel.
Yeah, it's the lookout.
Yeah. So the last one was 11, which was Latam and Oceana's results.
There you go. So, welcome to episode 12. After potentially the least professional preamble you've ever heard, but who cares? You know what you're listening to by now.
Yeah.
Today, we've got exciting stuff in store. So, we've not only got a exclusive interview with our world's competitor, Dean Harper from Oceana. We're going to be doing that in the second part of today's show, which is an interview with myself. And then also, we're going to be talking a little bit about European finals, which we had over last weekend. And our dear friend here, Mr. Oliver Simmons, was lucky enough to place in the top 16. So we're going to be hopping into a bit of his experience and talking through that very exciting run with Blue Bojack.
It's
Ollie,
been the best blue deck for God knows how long. I'm here to prove it, man.
no one else dares like pick up this deck, man. Like, how was your tournament? Talk us through.
It was really good fun. It was obviously nice to be in Utrecht and see a bunch of people who I haven't seen in ages. Big shout out to Jed, who hasn't played Dragon Ball since last year's finals, and just happened to be like in the group chat that we were planning everything in, and he was like, "Yeah, fuck it, I'll come along. Just like lend me a deck or something, and I'll figure out how to play." And he managed to go 4-4, so like, still got it apparently.
What did he play in the end?
I just gave him a Nuova deck, but I didn't have the Gogeta secret, so I gave him Piccolo Gohan.
Yeah.
But yeah, he spent every round just like picking up the opponent's cards and reading them. He came back to me after like round 5 and was like, "Yeah, that red Goku deck, that's pretty good, isn't it? That seems really dumb." I was like, yeah.
Pressed, consigned, like, yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really good fun. Obviously, I played Blue Bojack. I do have some words to say about how the event was organized, because I think that did lead partly into me going out in top 16. I was a little frustrated about that. But I'm sure we'll get on to that as well.
Let's just go for it off the rip. Tournament structure, organizing, let them have it.
Well, my big issue was the fact that they made us do top 16 on the same day as the Swiss for the most part.
Yeah.
Initially, it was just going to be the finals, so top 2 playing off on the Sunday. But then eventually they moved it to top 4 on the Sunday. I think they only moved it on the Saturday because they figured out like, oh, it's like 10 p.m. and we need
Dragon Ball takes a while.
Yeah. Yeah. They figured out best of 3 Dragon Ball is actually pretty long. But yeah, the fact that they made us do 8 rounds of Swiss and then jump straight into top 16 was like really rough. Especially because I'm playing a deck that takes a bit of sequencing, and like I think, I don't know if anyone else gets like this, anyone who's listening, but like when it comes to events, after the 7th round, my energy has dropped so far. I'll like make it through the 8th round on autopilot mode, and then I will be completely like gone, unconscious for like the next 4 hours. I need to get food. I need to sit with a blanket over me, snack on some shit, watch some TV. I do this after every event. And the guys who stay with me can attest to it as well.
And you cuddle some Pete as well.
Yeah. Like, I remember, especially after UKGE this year, I remember being under some blanket that Andre had brought. I don't even remember the trip home. I remember eating some chili Doritos and like just staring off into blank space. I wasn't even watching TV or anything. I was just sat there for like 2 hours. So like I need that downtime after an event, and then we just went straight into top 16. Where I was against Launch, and we only got one game through, which I unfortunately lost. I do think that if, obviously, like, it's a deck that I didn't really know what I was playing against too well, or how to play into it, because of the surprise factor. But I do think if I'd had, like, some time to relax and chill out, or if the top 16 had happened on the second day, then I feel like I would have had a much better shot at taking it. I think the game was very close, even with that in mind. So, yeah, I felt like I was favored into the matchup, and I could have maybe done a bit better in the top 16 if I'd had that period to rest. But
you would have thought there would have been a break, wouldn't you? At
well,
the very
there
least.
was. They said that they intended to start it. They started deck checks as soon as the Swiss was done, and they were like, okay, we intend to like start this in like, I think 20 minutes or so, as soon as deck checks are done. And then I couldn't find a judge for the next hour. I think they were all like busy helping with other games or like sorting out the deck checks and stuff. So I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know when I needed to be there for at all. So I just kind of had to sit there stressed out for
because you can't relax at all.
Yeah, exactly. And also Porter was there. Shout out to Porter. I think he was the only one who stuck with me throughout the top 16 as well. But he was just there like trying to calm me down the whole time.
He said that there was a time he came up to you and you just like talking to like the exhaustion you had at the time. You just made like a noise at him, and he was like, "What? Are you aware of what you've just said or done?" And you were like,
Yeah.
"I don't know, man." Like apparently you just said something like.
Yeah, I remember him saying that. He was like, you know, you didn't just say words, right? I was like, what? I swear I was just speaking to you. And he was like, no, you just made some noises. And I completely, like, I just thought I was speaking to the guy the whole time.
Absolute Dragon Ball fever dream going on.
Yeah, it really was. But now we both got to chat about how hyped we were for PQs in January for Star Wars. Can't talk about Dragon Ball for the entire introduction, obviously. So
no, absolutely not, because we've got a lot of these. This was like the light at the end of the tunnel for you, isn't it? It's like as soon as we're done with finals, there's no more like Dragon Ball events coming up, but then there's like all of the Star Wars events coming in as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Star Wars is in such a good state right now, and I can fully focus on it. It's very exciting. But I guess, is it worth me breaking down my run throughout the Swiss rounds as well?
Yeah, because we could landslide into like some Star Wars nerd boy talk about it for like the next 40 minutes or so, and people have tuned in to listen to your finals take, and we could get so far away from there. Shall we start with? I mean, I think people know why Bojack. Actually, I don't think that's a very valid question because that was what felt comfortable at the time. But what do you remember from the actual decks you played for European finals?
Yeah, so I mean, to quickly cover on why Bojack, it's because it's my favorite deck.
Yeah.
I haven't played much. I don't think I've played a game of Dragon Ball since French finals. Actually, I might have played 2 against Gio to help him test. So I fully intended to test out a bunch of shit, and then I was just like, I'm playing Star Wars instead, and realized that Bojack is kind of the deck that I know how to play best in the format, so I'll just take it and see how it goes. I think the decks that I faced, I played 3 Oceanus, 1 Nuova, which was one of my losses, unfortunately. That one was a really, really tilting loss because I had game on board and time got called as I was like killing him. And I was on lower life at the time, so I just lost. So 3 Oceanus, 1 Nuova, 2 Kid Coup, 1 Pan. I think I played Red Pan first round, and 1 green Namek Goku was my final round, which was against David Vargas, so obviously a very strong player, and that was my second loss of the day. I think I could have played it slightly differently if time rules weren't a thing, but I checked the clock and there was like 2 minutes left on time, and I wanted to play the game for like 1 or 2 more turns, but I was like, oh, I need to just drop Beast Gohan now and try and kill him because I don't have time to play out the rest of the game that I want to.
Great heads up.
Yeah, so that was unfortunate, but it was fine. Like I think he played the game very well as well, so it was a very back and forth game there as well, and it didn't end up knocking me out of top 16. I was the highest placing X2, so that was pretty nice as well. I think my highlight of the day was playing against one of the Kid Koos. I didn't awaken the whole game. I managed to defend myself on 6 life the entire game, and I dropped Kefla on 7 energy. I think I managed to ramp twice throughout the game as well. I definitely at least ramped once. So I dropped Kefla, put him to 0 cards in hand. He drew, play a skillless drew, played like a cantrip and drew, and was like, oh, I can't kill the Kefla, I'll pass. And so I went, okay, draw, swing Kefla for game. And I was sat there on like 6 life. I didn't play a unison the whole game either. So I didn't even like awaken with my alternative awaken because I was just burning my Z energy for Cell every turn to try and just keep clearing his board and critting him down. So I stayed unawakened for the entire game up until like 9 energy where I was swinging twice through with Kefla. So that was a really fun game to play out.
That's how you beat Kid Koo, man.
Yeah, well, I played the game out and I was like, damn, thank God all my Kid Koo testing has finally come in handy. Like, I feel so good about this because I've put so much work into this deck and it's paying off.
I like on that point as well, like I love that as well, where like you figure out how your rogue deck has like you make the matchup work, and it's in a really unconventional way that people don't see. So like no Kid Koo player is ever gonna have been prepared for that exact scenario, and you are, and that gives you like such an upper hand going into it because they'll expect you to want to awaken, so they're like waiting for you to unison up or waiting for you to take a bunch of damage, and you keep on comboing out and setting up these cells, and they're like, what the fuck is going on? And they don't know what's going on until they've been Keflin twice and lost.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a good part about me taking Bojack as well was it has a really, really strong matchup into both the Shadow Dragons, both Oceanus and Nuova. Because it just outvalues Nuova, and it can play it plays definitely defensive enough to just stall out Oceanus to get to a point where you can kill them. And like, I knew off the back of both France and Oceania results that Oceanus was going to be popping up everywhere. So I was kind of like, okay, if I pair into a bunch of Oceanus and Nuova, I'll be really happy. I didn't even test the Oceanus matchup going into the event because I was like, I've played enough against set 10 aggro Sin. I'm sure it's similar enough. So when I went into my first match against Oceanus, it was my first actual game against it. And I just managed to win all 3 of the matches against the deck based on pure theory and like previous testing I'd done from set 10. But like it ended up just being a really good metacal because of the prominence of the Shadow Dragons and Kid Koo, which is like probably a 50-50 matchup at this point. It's not too bad.
Yeah. And that's that like what we were talking about a few episodes back, where it's like, you know, I know you picked it because it's your favorite deck, but like the way it's worked out is like you've seen the meta for a couple of cycles almost, where Kid Koo is going to be popular, now Oceanus is popular, but Bojack is going to beat Oceanus and Nova when more people are turning up with that, and it's still got that like 55-45 matchup into Kid Koo where you can manage it when you get paired against it.
Yeah, definitely.
And you have your matchups with Shadow Dragons, which is like awesome when you make that kind of read, so to speak, into the meta.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I was very happy about was I didn't pair any Zamasu Mill because that matchup is an auto loss. Like, you just go get lunch.
All hail Zamasu.
Yeah, I've tested it out a couple times and there is literally nothing you can do unless they just play the matchup really badly. Or if they brick. like if they just don't see a dormant all game, then you can maybe kill them. So I do think that my top 16 run would have been stopped even if I'd managed to win against the launch player, because I'm pretty sure next round, or at least in top 4, I was going to be paired into the Zamasu player who made finals. So I don't think there was... I'm pretty sure I was in the same bracket as him, so I don't think there was ever a way that I ever made top 2 with Bojack. Just because Zamasu managed to make it into this top 16, and I was like, well, we're not making it far anymore.
I think Zamasu is going to be one of those things that when we go back over the tier list, we're going to have to take a pretty hefty...
Yeah, definitely.
Like, even like last time we were talking about Oceana results, we're like, nah, this is going to find too many Kid Coos. It's not going to do anything in Europe. But there it was in the final. I'm just there like, fair play. You got us. We put it in C tier, and we were hilariously wrong.
Yeah, I think that deck is gonna be disgusting when Kid Koo gets nerfed in some way, because like I think we all expect some sort of Kid Koo hit on the ban list coming up, but like if it does happen that Kid Koo gets hit in some way, then Zamasu is going to ruin the meta. I feel like that deck is insanely disgusting.
And interestingly, people are starting to kind of adapt to it already. Like Namek-Ku had kind of dropped off, but what was really interesting about David Vargas's build was he was main decking 2 of the like old promo Vegeta that puts 7 cards from your drop to the bottom of your deck.
Yeah.
So people are already starting to kind of go, what deck choice kind of, not only again like, you know, Namek-Ku has a decent enough matchup into Kid Ku where it can survive. It can fight off the Shadow Dragons and also has access to that to not lose it automatically to Zamasu.
Yeah, although I'm pretty sure Vargas ended up losing in top 16 to the Zamasu. I can't remember for sure, but
like the thing is, you've also got Bujins to deal with it, so
yeah, you got counterplays to deal with that one drop. It's I really, really hate that deck. I really hate that deck.
So I was gonna say, I know because I've been playing a bit more, and it was definitely my pick. I didn't realize because I know when I said I didn't realize the thingies restand when you Union Batora them. So like what I was doing was, let's say I swing with a 5-drop Zamasu, and then obviously now it's in rest mode. I used to evolve just to make a mill, but I didn't realize that it actually restands, and then you can swing again. So it's I didn't because I've never played. Well, the only time I played a Union Patrol deck was pre-COVID when Rolly U6 was a thing. So this would have been draft box when Warcry just came out. So that's how long ago I've played a Union Patrol deck. But yeah, basically the Batora goes in active mode. So even if the 2 cards in question are in rest mode, it goes inactive. So what you can do, again, this is something I didn't realize. You can actually be quite aggressive with the deck. You can be a lot more aggressive than I actually understood, because the way I was doing was swing, whatever, and then evolve like 3 times just to make them milk some cards. But now each one of those evolves are now an extra swing. And that's huge. I think that's something I didn't realize was something you can do with the deck. So
yeah, and that's like what's really interesting. I actually remember what my take on Zamasu was when we were doing the tier list, and also to people like afterwards who asked about what I thought about the deck. I was like, it just doesn't feel like it does either of the things it wants to do very effectively. Like looking at the card quality of it. And then what's crazy is that after actually seeing it in action, it can do both of those things extremely well, and it can also pick its lane depending on the matchup. Like it can aggro you in a really good way, and it can mill you out on like turn 5, turn 6 really, really consistently.
Yeah, I will say the mirror match is AIDS, and I will say that Cooler Mill is going to have a field day with it. Because I think what's quite funny is I think it loses to all mill decks because you draw so much with Zamasu. Every single evolve or Union Batora draws you a card. Every single 4-drop except for the Goku Blacks draw you a card. All your 1-drops technically one of them, you could argue, doesn't draw you a card if you fail to find. But yeah, they all draw cards. So what ends up happening? So I had a quick before before finals. I just had a quick game against Tom. Did a quick just mirror match, see what that looked like, and it was as AIDS as I thought it would be. And I think it's whoever goes first. I think you have to win via damage in that particular matchup if you're going second. Again, I haven't tested it enough, so maybe people in the chat can correct me. But my understanding from my very limited testing is if you go first, you can win by mill out. If you go second, you've got to win via damage. But I obviously have only played one game, and that's just my initial reaction. And then Cooler Mill, I remember Cooler Mill in this scenario had 60 cards in deck. I had 54, so this is start. And again, because every card I kept only one Zamasu on the field, so he could only minus one target. And I think I got Cooler down to like maybe 4 or 5 cards, but I couldn't mill him because I have to draw in order to mill him. And I ran out of cards before Cooler, so maybe there's a scenario where you can do it a little bit better than I did it. But yeah, I think like even though I was trying so hard to like against Cooler Mill just like with one Zamasu card, it's a very difficult matchup. And I even though I thought it was better than Janemba, I do wonder a little bit if Janemba just mills him out flat out. I don't know. But yeah, I think Cooler is the answer for Zamasu, and I think Zamasu is the answer to Zamasu as well.
It's interesting though, like what I was picking up on when you were talking there is like mill in a way is what balances out the game from it being so draw heavy. Like what we've really seen in the last couple of years from the game is that drawing cards has become so much more consistent. People have got massive hand sizes.
Yep.
And the more cards your deck draws, the more powerful it's going to be. Normally. And mill is kind of like the antithesis to that, where because there's a reason that Cooler was a set 9 leader and it plays to this day. There's a reason that Janemba is a set 5 leader.
Well,
and
set 5 promo technically.
Set 5 promo still play today because all of these like mill centric strategy, and now Zamasu is like in the meta and doing really well, but also suffers to the other mill decks because it draws so much.
Yeah.
Because it needs to also exist within this space where all the decks draw a bunch of cards. It's really because like a lot of people aren't a big fan of mill, but mill almost is like a necessary evil in a way.
I'm happy to be that necessary evil. Definitely. But no, and also I want to say Dormant is broken to fuck. I've not played a green deck in a very, very long time. And after playing it in Zamasu, I'm like, what the hell is this Dormant? It's like, I want this card in every deck I play. Like, I want this Invoker. I want this in every deck, man. Because all you need is you just accept the 1 damage from whatever's hitting you, or 2 if it's a double, and then you just hard negate the next one, and this turn's done. You don't have to worry about none of this, like, oh, is he going to swing with Unisons now, or is he going to bid this Z energy to keep attacking? You Dormant's crazy good. Absolute crazy good.
And interestingly, Zamasu could be what puts Dormant on the chopping block.
Yeah, finally see it gone.
Our thumbnail that was so triggering a few weeks ago, finally telling the prophecy. I think it's really because like Dormant is a really necessary tool for a lot of green decks, but when you know that you can mill someone out on turn 5, turn 6 very consistently, and you've got a tool that lets you skip turns 3, 4, and 5 effectively, that could be a really miserable experience because like mill decks are also balanced in the way that how do you defend yourself before you get to your win con, otherwise they'd be everywhere as well, so there's certainly a bit of fine balancing to do there.
The same thing was with Invoker when we had MVP at 1. So exactly the same thing. Your turn literally you could do Invoker live pretty much straight away, but let's say it was turn 3, so 3, 4, 5, you could literally do back-to-back MVPs, for example. And it's the same principle as what you're saying there with Mill. I then have Invoker live for 1 energy all the way through, and I'm not dying. Yeah. And it's the reason why that was hit as well. So I do agree, actually. I think when we're closer to obviously the next set release, I think it's safe to say I have a feeling this might be the time Dorman goes. I don't know. It just feels so good. Like I say, I haven't played green in a long time as a green player, but now I've been playing it in Zamasu. I'm looking at it, it's like, this is crazy. This card is absolute nuts, man. Absolute nuts.
Absolutely so. I think looking forward and looking at what the meta kind of gave us here in Europe, Zamasu's not going away anytime soon unless something happens to that very like strong defensive tool it's got. Shadow Dragons and Kidku are not like, we've almost set up where what you're going to expect from the events is off the back of these 3 finals. You've got your Shadow Dragons, you've got Zamasu and Nanek representing green, you've got Kidku there as well, still being Kidku, but there's a lot more of a like dynamic feel.
It's a bit like a triangle, a little bit.
Yeah.
Where
a little bit last week, but like it's really starting to like kind of solidify itself.
And then Black Goku keeps trying to poke in, but it's like he doesn't get through the barrier. So it's not a square yet; it's staying a triangle. So maybe with the Pan Black deck that comes out next set, maybe that will change. A little spoiler for anyone that's looked at the new TP cards. But yeah, I think Zamasu. I would like to see some extra support for him, personally. But I would like some new targets. I want some new targets. I'm
you just
fed
want
up
everything.
With, like,
you just want everything.
No, I want a bit more of a boss. Like, no. It doesn't have to mill. I just want a bit more of an evolve where, let's say, it evolves on top of the 8 drop, and maybe it's like a 10 drop, like triple strike or something. Like,
yes,
you don't even.
I guess.
No, I want something to be a bit more, so I can kill you rather than just relying on mill.
Yeah, because the mill's like pretty good, but the killing you just need like a little bit more, right? So like,
yeah, exactly.
Why not?
If it's
just give him a triple striker.
Yeah. But yeah.
Fuck it.
Yeah. I want something a bit more like geared towards the fact I can then pivot to attacking if I want to. Yeah. And I'll be happy.
Oh, you've got some thoughts, mate. You can see it all over his face. Like, it's just completely like contorted. Like,
That's fine. I might have to use my Dragon's Den wish to make a card for Zamasu. Right. Might have to do that just to get it out there.
Yeah, the last one was really successful.
Mate, I can't believe you guys didn't like that one. That was so good. I liked that one.
I'd love to see you design a card game personally, Peter.
I already know what it would be. I've been thinking about this a long time, and it's based on a raw deal card, which is Divine Intervention, which is actually an anti-mill card, believe it or not. So there's a card in raw deal, which is a game that died a long time ago, and what its original text was, when it was getting overturned from damage or milled, that you stopped it instantly, so you didn't mill. So in terms of mill, like if I was gonna, like against the old freezer stuff with the with the tokens, what would happen is you'd keep milling, and then as soon as that card's mill, it would stop the damage from the mill. So that's kind of what the card did. So I was gonna copy that original effect, but have it where the turn ends. So, like, for example, if you're, like, let's say I'm Janimba, I swing at you, you mill this card, that's it, the turn's done. And it's straight away your turn.
No, I meant I wanted to see you design a whole card game.
A card game?
To see that and experience that personally.
Mate, it'd be fucking great. Everyone would be in mill on alternative win condition. It'd fucking be great.
No, that would be great, I think.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful.
we're gonna have to expand Dragon Ball's Den into like a like
Full
come up with your
archetype.
card game concept.
Design a new
whole
game.
card game to us.
Yeah. Oh, that would be something, wouldn't it? But yeah.
Any more that you guys want to say on European finals? I think we've covered kind of what the meta ramifications are.
Well, you didn't ask how mine was, so thanks for asking, dickhead.
Well, it was intentional because nobody wants to hear about One Piece, right?
No, mine's going to be very
Go on,
short
go on.
anyway, because I was ill. So, short story is, I was ill. So, the night before, I didn't get much sleep, but that's not here or there. You know, Ollie didn't get much sleep because of Brad snoring.
And you're snoring.
Nice
No,
one,
mate.
Brad.
Keeps
No,
trying
no,
to
no.
pin it on Brad every time, I swear.
Brad
Oh.
exclusively. What a villain.
But no, I had a massive headache all the way through the night. I kept waking up, and then I woke up in the morning with a massive headache. And the problem is, because I'm on blood pressure tablets, you're quite limited on what medication you can take. Because if you have a red medication, a lot of it says do not take this if you have high blood pressure and stuff like that. A lot of them do.
Yeah.
So, and then the only one I can take, which I think is ibuprofen. The last time I took it, I had massive, crazy heart palpitations. So I've never taken, and this was like a couple of years ago. So I don't. Anytime I get a headache now, I just suffer for it. But anyway, so that's the start of my day. Got there, started playing. I felt a bit off. Fine. Played a couple of rounds. And then I lost to a Nal, which, as Nami, you should never lose to a Nal. Since I've played the game, I've never lost to a Nal. The best way to describe it in Dragon Ball terms is probably if you're playing the Kid Crew deck now and you're against, I don't know, Shenron Wish star deck leader. Like, there's no way in hell that Kid Crew should lose to that matchup, right? And I've never lost to that matchup. I've played it 1,000 times, and it's the easiest matchup in the world. I should never lose. And I lost. And I was just like, oh, and I dropped.
Right
I went,
here.
hey, I knew I was fucked. Like, I knew mentally there was something going on. And also, like, I think the universe was trying to tell me something because in One Piece, you don't shuffle your deck after a search. You bottom deck the cards. So I have an Amazon package, which I have about, maybe 14, 15 cards. I did top 5 searcher 4 times in the game, and I didn't find a single target. So I looked through 20 cards of my deck to get a card that I should get pretty much one of every time. Now and again, you'll whiff. So I was just like, okay, the universe hates me because 4 of the targets were in my life. I was just like, that never has ever happened to me before. So I just dropped, went back to the hotel and slept. And that's literally my finals experience. I don't know what was wrong with me. There was some illness of some kind. And that's, like I say, it's not an excuse. I literally dropped, went straight to the hotel and slept. And then I remember waking up, hearing Ollie and Gio doing well. And I don't even think I left the bed until these guys were ready to go for food. I don't remember leaving bed. So that's kind of like what happened, really. I was in bed the entire finals pretty much, which is a shame. Obviously, as people know, I chose One Piece. I don't regret the decision because I do and I don't, right? Because it's like I know it would be the opposite. So if I was playing Dragon Ball, I would then be regretting not playing
The grass
One
is always
Piece.
greener, right?
Yeah. So, and I would have taken Zamasu. I already made that decision. So it's good to know that Zamasu did well. I don't think I would have done as well, if I'm being honest, because I wouldn't have had as many games as the guy that came second with Zamasu. But yeah, it's very unfortunate because, like I say, there was something wrong with me that day. And it's a shame. It's heartbreaking because with that being finals and because I chose One Piece. But yeah, I was ill. I don't know what it was. And it's unfortunate, but it's the worst performance I've done in my entire life, I think, for like since I've been a lot more how can I put this? A lot more in the competitive world. Because obviously when you're a newbie, you're going to have shit performances and whatnot. But since I'm a lot more in the mix, so to speak, I feel like it's the worst performance I've done, and I say, I can only think it's down to being ill. But yeah, so that's my finals experience. And then Sunday, I pretty much stayed in bed, watched finals in person, watched our lovely Spanish community kick ass. Spoiler alert, top 3 were all Spanish players. No, top 4 was all Spanish players, wasn't it?
Yeah, all of top 4.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Can't forget buddy old boys on there. So yeah, it was good. But yeah, that was pretty much my finals. Big disappointment overall.
Yeah, and it's a real shame to hear. I think that regardless of what game you picked, you always had that kind of illness factor there as well. And
yeah. If I played Dragon Ball, it would have been the same thing, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And the big message to you guys listening as well from that is this shit happens as well. You will get to a tournament, and your health is way more important than the outcome of the game, as much as sometimes for us it might feel like the opposite of I need to push through and get the accomplishment. Absolutely, if you're not feeling it on the day, prioritize yourself and your own healthcare above the performance, because there will always be another tournament. There's always going to be another final, whether it's for Dragon Ball, One Piece, whatever. You will always find your way to another tournament. But you absolutely need to prioritize yourself in the moment, I should say.
Yeah, I think for me, say, because I went to the hotel, I think it's different, right? If you're, because I can look at myself and know how ill I must have been, because say, if you were pissing about and just dropped because you were being shit that day, because that happens as well, you'd stick around and support your teammates, or just have a laugh with them or whatever. Literally, say, I went straight to the hotel and slept all the way through. That's all I did. I just slept, and then woke up when these guys pretty much finished.
Clearly needed the sleep as well there.
Yeah, it's a shame, and I say, I'm generally gutted, because I put in a lot of work for One Piece, and yeah, I think it was the universe or God telling me I made the wrong choice, so I'm gonna smite you. That's, I think, what it was. Right, I'm gonna have to blame Mr. Almighty up there, smited me down for picking One Piece.
It's good to know he's on our side when it comes to Masters.
Exactly, yeah.
No, but it's a real, as I say, it's a real shame, and I'm really sorry you had that experience, mate. It's never nice when you pay all that money and you invest so much time and effort into something, regardless of the reason why, whether it's divine intervention, we go back to that word, or not. It's a real shame you didn't get to have that experience.
Yeah, or at least an opportunity to go on your own performance when there's outside factors. I mean, it doesn't happen very often, right? I mean, most of the time people are able to play in a tournament perfectly fine. Obviously, I know Ollie got a little bit less sleep than desirable, again thanks to Brad, but
Brad.
man, he was snoring. You can't say Brad was not snoring.
Yeah, but you were snoring louder. Peter and Brad have this, I don't know if I've mentioned this on a previous podcast, Peter and Brad do this thing when they stay in a hotel room together. They start harmonizing their snoring, and it is really hard to sleep through.
Yeah.
It'll be like one of them snores and then starts to breathe in as the other one goes up. It's like...
and then there's poor Ollie having to fucking listen to us.
Yeah.
Wrapped around his ears like, oh.
But I will say, outside of the tournament, the rest of Utrecht was quite nice. There was because we were in a city center, so where we were, it was literally a 10-minute walk to the venue. The train station was a 10-minute walk. Literally, in terms of location, where I chose for us was pretty perfect. It was everything was in throwing distance. Food everywhere. It was great. So yeah, very, very, very nice place, and I would like to go again. I think it's I mean, we obviously had finals in Netherlands like 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
2 years ago. And I must admit, I prefer this place where we're at Utrecht than where it was last time. I forgot where it was last time, but because it was further down towards the beach. That's all I remember.
Yeah, it was definitely a really nice place to be at.
Yeah, so well done, Utrecht.
Incredible. It was lovely here as well, not in Utrecht. Not the loveliest time of year, honestly.
Oh yeah, we had all the winds and everything. I forgot about that.
Oh god, yeah, it was gross.
Yeah. Brad had a 6-hour delay, I think.
Yeah, something like that. It was wild. He was meant to
For us, it was
fly.
fine.
I think he was meant to leave at like 8 a.m. or something. He got to the airport at like 6 or some shit. And I think his flight was then delayed until 2 p.m. And he was just kind of sat there messaging us like, our flight's been delayed till 11 now. It's been delayed till 12 now. And I woke up and I was like, oh, we'll go to Amsterdam and then we'll probably see Brad there.
There's nothing more depressing than sitting in an airport for like 6 hours as well. Like, there's only so many times you can go through duty free and just like have a nosy at it before you just sat there like,
yeah,
plane's going to be here in 5 hours now. Oh, I've burnt 40 minutes.
That's the worst. It's not too bad if you get the message like before, because then it's like, okay, it's delayed 5 hours or whatever. I'm gonna stay at home. I mean, even that's a bit of a risk, right? Just in case it changes all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But at least you could make that decision not to rush and get there like maybe a bit closer to where you want it to be. But when you've already gone, it's like nightmare.
Yeah, can't turn back now.
Yeah, you're screwed.
Right, I think that will be everything in terms of our little talk through European finals. Ollie, do you have any final words before I shift us along?
Yeah, I guess big shout out to everyone who helped out with European finals. All the judges were great, and head judge Josh, of course, always keeping things very timely as well in between rounds. And big shout out to Gio as well for making top 8 with the aggro new overbuild that we were cooking up for a couple months now. And I think even Joe here was interested in it and involved in the early stages of testing, because I think you were the first person I even played the deck against.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I was like, what the hell is this and why am I not playing it? And then, like, I had a blast playing it for a couple of weeks or so. While I still had like the cards for it, so it was it's a fucking amazing deck. Like, massive shout out to Gio for taking it to this like next level.
Yeah, he did an amazing job.
Incredible. So next, and we're going to do a little bit of a playful edit cut over to this. You will be listening to myself and Dean from Oceana from Melbourne. Talk through his second place finish at the Oceania finals. That's the word I was thinking of there. And we're also going to be cutting back to us three after we've had a bit of a listen to his Dragon Ball's Den pick as well. After we've gone through. So first time we've got a guest on. So it's really, really exciting. I really, really hope you enjoy this segment. And please do let us know below what your thoughts are, and if you are keen to see a bit more of this as well. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special segment of the Skip Charge podcast. As you can see, I've traded in my alternative co-host for a much more splendid and attractive model here. I'd like to very kindly welcome Dean Harper to the podcast, who is our world's representative from Oceania for this year at the World Finals. Dean, how are you doing, first of all, and how does it feel hearing that out loud?
Mate, I can't hear it enough. Like, this is a dream of mine that I thought would never come true, but it's actually happening, and I'm still pinching myself. And thank you for having me on the channel. It's I've been a big fan since day one, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Amazing. You guys will have probably heard me in the previous episode saying that like me and Dean have had like a bit of a conversation back and forth over the last couple of weeks and leading into the Oceania finals. And it was such a joy to hear that you'd got second place and you were going to Worlds even after that brief conversation. It was a really lovely thing to be a part of from my perspective.
Yeah, well, I think that's what brings us together today. Like me reaching out to you, just asking for a bit of advice on green Vegito that I was thinking about taking to Nats. I remember you saying that you worked out some spicy combos, and I wanted to hit you up to see like, hey, well, got any advice on this deck? And that's how we got the ball rolling with us two, I guess.
Oh yeah, I think it was literally in the episode you probably listened to where we were talking about, what strategies to employ for going into your tournaments, and one of those things was reach out to people and see what they come back with and just see where you get to. So it's like, admittedly, the Green Vegito thing wasn't actually any help because you went with a very different deck pick in the first place, but that connection, that's what the card games are all about from my perspective. I'm not sure how much you agree with that, Dean.
No, I do agree with it. And this was the actually first time I did reach out to people before a tournament, and I enjoyed it. I liked reaching out to these people that I watch on YouTube or people who I know about, and everybody's been so nice with their responses, and it's been nothing but positive feedback. So yeah, loved it.
Yeah, that's really lovely to hear, and I think it segues us really nicely into the actual tournament prep that you went through yourself, heading into Oceania finals. So you mentioned it's the first time that you've kind of used the network in a way. Um, you're going into the first tournament ever of BT26, and it happens to be the most important tournament of the year as well. Um, how do you tackle that as a player? And yeah, especially for our listeners watching, they'll be really keen to hear that.
Honestly, like I don't really have a plan on how I prepare for a tournament. I just sort of wing it and then just do whatever comes to mind. Um, and then just watching your videos or just reach out to people if you like. If they're playing that deck that you're interested in, then ask them some questions and see if you can get advice. That was one thing that I did to prepare. Um, the other thing I did was in this new set compete with Kidku, because obviously like Kidku is the big boogeyman of the format. So that was one other thing that I had to consider. And then I just picked a handful of decks that I wanted to test and then just went from there, really.
Amazing. And what decks did you test with? Obviously, we've mentioned Green Vegito a little bit there as well, but sounds like there was a couple of options that got put on the table before you eventually landed on the deck you landed on.
Yeah, there was a few different options. I tried Kid Q when it first came out, and I never really disliked the deck for some reason.
Mm.
It just wasn't speaking to me like other decks have been. Um, Green Vegito, like we've been talking about, yes, it is a strong deck and it has a lot of good things going for it. But it was just another. I haven't played green for a long time competitively, so
Yeah.
I think that was just another deck that just didn't gel with me very well.
Yeah.
And ever since I picked up the dragons, I first was playing Nova, and I was really liking that deck. I just didn't see like many weaknesses in it. It was just an all-round good deck. But it was struggling into Kid Q a little bit, even though other people are beating Kid Q with the deck.
Yeah.
um, I didn't like um how it relied on a unison so much,
Yes.
and then Kid Q can just wipe it out so easily. So I decided to give Oceana a try and fell in love with the deck instantly. And I just knew that was a deck I wanted to take.
incredible. And tell me a bit more about that falling in love with Oceanus. Like, what about the deck really called to you that maybe Nova wasn't?
Just the early aggression.
Mm.
The early aggression that a lot of decks couldn't keep up with, and the quite consistently can pull it off as well with the searches through the Oceanus, the searches through the leader ability. It's quite consistent and it just pops off pretty hard. And it's hard for some decks to stop that. For most decks to stop that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And what I found with Oceanus when I played against it a few times is that it feels like a deck that get you a deck that can do both. Is how I'd refer to Oceanus, because you not only get that crazy early turn aggression for the first 3 turns, but if you need to pivot into this utterly obnoxious pin your leader down over and over again and grind out the game as well when you're going against something like Kidku that is also super aggressive. That's just massive. Like, did you ever lean into those more like controlling elements in any at any point?
Yeah, I did. I was actually having a game with my friend after the Nationals, and he saw what Oceanus could do. So he wasn't taking his own life. He was floodgating me early before he even awakened.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, I'm going to take the back seat and just play my barrier blockers.
Yeah.
You can't really remove them since you're like not awakened yet. And I just stored a lot in that match. And
Yeah.
I think that was the first time that I did stall that much. And it actually worked out pretty well. So the deck can do aggressive and take the back seat as well.
Amazing. And what we'll do is we'll just very quickly kind of touch on the deck. You guys at home listening, you've seen Shadow Dragon deck list before. You won't need us to go into meticulous detail on exactly why Dean was running some super combos in his deck, or why he was playing an 8-drop Omega Shenron, or whatever it might be. What were your key standouts of the deck? We may actually have it appear on screen at this point as well. I'm going to leave Ollie to do that in the post edit, but I'm sure he'll thank me for it as well. But for those guys who are just listening to us, really, what cards were like a massive standout to you? And then maybe what were some of the cards that didn't quite perform up to your expectations?
Well, the deck is quite standard. I saw the list from the French finals that won, and I used that as my skeleton, with a few changes here and there just to suit my style. I like having a few like tech slots in my main deck just so I can side them in and out to suit the match that I'm in.
Yeah.
And those tech pieces that I put into my main was the Broly evolution that removes a combo piece.
Yeah.
And I decided to main that just to stop those early decks that like to get that Z energy to play out the Z unison to awaken. I can just stall them out a turn if that came up.
Yeah.
So that was pretty good. I liked having that in the deck. One card that surprised me that didn't go well was the 6-drop Goku that can restand by ditching 3Z energy.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that I didn't play that card the whole tournament. And
so there's not much to tell about it then.
There is not much to tell. Like, that is, in my eyes, like a very strong card. Like a 1 energy, there is something ignoring barrier. It can restand if you have enough Z energy to keep attacking. It's a very solid card, but it just didn't come up the whole tournament. So the most underperforming card in the deck, which is surprising to me.
Yeah, I feel like we're lucky we don't have Pete with us, because at this point he'd like derail us and start talking about how the website still says you can play 4 copies of it, and ask you why you weren't playing like the full 4. Luckily they seem to have just updated that on the website now, but like even like as the one-off, it just doesn't really come up in the deck too much anymore then.
Yeah, I believe it would come up in a lot of yellow decks, but just maybe not so much in Oceanus.
Yeah. Awesome.
Because you rather just spend your energy just playing your dragons and just being more aggressive, or saving your energy for flying Nimbus or something. It just never really came up for me.
Yeah, I feel that having access to one energy and being able to either copy anything with the 8 drop Omega, the first 8 drop Omega, or the one energy to be like a 30k triple striker. I'm not sure if you play the 30k triple striker in there. Yeah, I should have done my research first, right? But like, the 30k, like one energy on that feels so much more impactful and powerful than, the one energy to maybe, untap this Goku once.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Other than that, the secret rare choice was Piccolo Han. That wasn't even a question for me. Just having a free secret rare that can come down and just apply so much pressure was just a no-brainer to me. And the rest is just pretty standard Oceanus good stuff.
Yeah, I think I'm in full agreement with you there. I don't think like some decks really benefit from being able to play the Gogeta SCR in yellow, and that has seen a bit of a breakout in certain decks. But something like this, where you can be playing a free SCR so early on, so aggressively, it is just a no-brainer.
I've seen some Oceanus lists that run like the more discard build that might run the Toa Overrealm and maybe like the Purunga secret rare.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that build, but I just prefer the more aggressive build where I can just draw more cards and just be more aggressive.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I find that there are decks that do that better than Oceanus, where you want to be able to feed into your Shadow Dragon synergies more than you want to feed into discard, because if you want to go down Toa, Gogeta, Sin side of things, you've got decks that facilitate that in a much more meaningful way.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. And I have a question. We are going to get into sort of how the tournament went in general, but one of the big breakouts from Oceana that everyone was looking at is this new green Zamasu mill deck. Did you play any of them?
I played 2 of them in Swiss.
How did you find that matchup?
Bit of 50-50. And saying 50-50, I won one of those matches and I lost one of those matches.
Yeah.
Um, I went into the tournament without testing that match. The first match went well for me. I ended up stopping one of his chains by ignoring one of his card skills, and then I could just haze it away. And that just stopped his chain. And he also bricked a little bit. Like I forced him to discard cards, and he just didn't see his Vegeta discard cards. And I just sort of just had the upper hand in that match, I guess. And the second one, I wasn't able to stop any of his chains, and he was just milling my deck and too fast, and he ended up milling me out. But that was my only loss in Swiss, and I ended up coming third and going to top cut third place.
Awesome. That's a really nice kind of segue in a way into the actual like sort of like round structures and everything and what you played like to the best of your ability, because I'm a bit like this when I play a tournament. I'm like, I can't remember what I played last round sometimes, and I've literally just finished the round. Talk us through what your run was like, what decks you played, how some of the matches went, any general feelings kind of as you were going through the tournament.
Yeah, sure. So Swiss, we had 5 rounds. I can't remember the total amount of players. It was somewhere between 50 to 60.
Yeah.
And there was 5 rounds in Swiss. My first match was SS4 Vegito, the black deck. The funny thing about this match was my very first burst of Oceanus was my secret rare.
Oh,
And
no.
I was like, And I was like, here we go. This is going to be a fun day.
Yeah, great tournament. Here we go.
Yeah, but my opponent wasn't aware about Oceanus. He didn't side anything for me because he didn't know what the deck did.
Yeah.
And I knew very well what SS4 Vegeta could do, so I feel like I had the upper hand there. And I ended up taking the match.
Amazing.
Round two was a scary one because if people know who he is, he's one of the highest representing Australian players there is. His name is John. I think a lot of people around the world may know who he is.
Agiros.
And he was on Kid. Yes, that's him.
Yeah.
And he was on Kid Q, so I was just like, here we go. This is not going to be easy. And where I got the upper hand in that match is that I revealed 2 of my Dragon Thunders, like by either discarding them or charging them, however. So he saw like 2 of them was already used. And he figured I wouldn't have another one, like in my hand. So he didn't use his Secret Water early. And I ended up having a 3rd Dragon Thunder in my hand to negate the water skills, and I was able to push the game that way.
Oh, that's an awesome way to win out. Also against such an accomplished player because John was at Worlds last year for Oceana as well. The mind games at play there as well, especially when you've revealed 2 and you're like, I wouldn't possibly have a 3rd one there.
Yeah. So that's how I was able to like beat John. If I didn't already reveal with 2 Dragon Thunders, he probably would have used the water early, and it would have been a whole different match.
Yeah.
And who knows who would have won.
Yeah. The things that happen at the top tables and like between top players, that simple ratio in the deck, and that very simple play of like you've seen these Dragon Thunders early, I know how you're gonna think, therefore I'm gonna play around it is so clever.
Then my 3rd match was the Yellow Bardock's crew.
Yes.
Yeah, and that match was pretty good. He was cycling and drawing cards like crazy. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, he was just drawing cards and like searching top 5 so many times in just one turn. I was just, oh my gosh, like what is happening?
Yeah.
The game turned in my favor when he played his secret rare. It's the 8-drop Bardock one that you play out for 3 energies, I think.
Yeah. That's a blast from the past.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a bit. And he swung first without using his ability to wipe my board. And I was just able to haze it away. And he just completely forgot about the haze.
We've all been there, but that's huge.
Yeah, that was a big play. And then next turn, I just I played the Goku Annihilation, where he couldn't use a extra card, and then I was just able to win that next turn.
Yeah, incredible. And talk to me briefly about Absolute Annihilation as well. Should this card be banned? Should it still be around?
I'm a bit 50-50 on it. I can see why people would think it should be banned, and I wouldn't blame Bandai if they did decide to ban it. But I don't think it's a problem in the game.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Yeah. Elaborate more for me on that one. Like, what do you think? Like, why don't you view it as so much of a problem in the game at the minute?
It's because there's so many floodgates that are battle cards. So Absolute Annihilation doesn't even hit them.
Yeah.
And it only works in very certain scenarios where sometimes it can come up, sometimes it can be a dead card in your hand, or it's just a 5k combo. So I don't think it's a problem, but I can see why some people might want it banned, for sure.
Yeah, no, I find that really interesting to hear, actually, because, I mean, I'd be someone who is firmly on the let's just get rid of this card. It's a little bit obnoxious now, but I think you make a really great point of we're starting to see people fluctuate back towards a lot of these battle card floodgates as opposed to the extra card floodgates. So Absolute Annihilation isn't maybe quite, if people's deck building is a little bit more on point and they're a bit more clever with how they're playing around it, it might not actually be as big a problem as we as a community may have painted it to be.
Yeah. And it's costing me 3 energies to play it. If I don't have already an established board, I'm not considering it because it's just going to use up my whole turn for nothing.
Yeah, a bit of a win more card.
Yeah, exactly. So then going into my next 2 rounds was the 2 Zamasu meals.
Yeah.
Zamasu meals that we've already kind of brushed up on.
Yeah.
And then that wraps up the 5 rounds and then goes into the top 8 top cut.
Amazing. And let's dig into that top cut run then, and what a spectacular run it was. Your first matchup, your top 8 matchup, what did you play there, and how did you find that, especially with the mental side of it? Like, you're now in top 8 and now it's sort of like single elimination. There's a chance this is actually happening. Like, what's going through your head at that moment?
Honestly, I don't really remember too much of that moment.
Yeah.
Because going to top cut is a very nerve-wracking feeling. It's very exciting, but it's very like nerve-wracking at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure like how my mind was at that moment, but it must have been doing something right because I performed better than I was expecting.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, like, and that's a really interesting point there, like better than you were expecting. Like, what were your expectations going in?
Honestly, I wasn't feeling too confident going to this tournament. I only had 2 practice matches with Oceanus before the tournament started. I put most of my focus into Fusion World for this Nats, just because once I found Oceanus, I just decided that's the deck I wanted to play, and it was a no-brainer for me. But then Fusion World, I didn't know what deck I wanted to play. It was such a struggle, so I put most of my time into Fusion World trying to pick a deck. But yeah, leading into this top cut match, I versed Kidku.
Yeah.
And I was the 3rd seed, so I got to pick if I wanted to go first or second.
Yeah.
And obviously I chose to go first, and I pretty much drew the nuts. Like, I drew the nuts. I put out my 330k bodies, turn 2, got him down to 4 life without him using the water, and I just sort of ran away with game 1. And game 2, I can't really recall game 2 very well, but I ended up just taking that match up as well and taking the first cut match 2-0.
Yeah.
And yeah, so after that, I was just feeling good. Like, winning my first cut match with 2-0, I was just like, okay, like this is getting serious now.
You're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, pretty much.
Amazing. And then, and that's really interesting because that top 8 match was very like, nerves are jangling. Oh my God, I don't know what's going on. I can't remember how I was feeling. But the feeling after that top 8 match where you've broken in, you've smashed it 2-0, is just palpable. It's that, like, I could even see it on your face there. You just started to like grin and you were like, oh my God, this could be going somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just, I think we said at the start of the video, like, just going to Worlds is a dream for most Masters players or most TCG players.
Yeah.
Like, that is the ultimate achievement to play at Worlds. And when you feel yourself getting that one step closer to feeling your dream, the nerves start to build even higher. And it starts to get a crazy feeling.
That's unbelievable. And then you take all those feelings and then you sit down at your top 4 match. Like, what's that like? What are you playing against, and how's that all playing out?
Yeah, so my top 4 match went up against Nova, and I felt like all right going into this match because I had higher seed again, and I could choose if I wanted to go first, which I did. I chose to go first, and I knew. And as previously mentioned, like Nova was my first pick going into Nats before I settled with Oceanis. So I understood the deck quite well and what I needed to do. And I think the same thing happened game one. I just saw the nuts and I just applied too much pressure too early, and they just couldn't come back from that. And then game two is similar to the Kid Koo match. I don't really remember how game two went very much, but I ended up winning the top four match 2-0 as well.
Yeah, you sometimes get to points where like the adrenaline takes over, right? And you're like, you know what? I don't know what happened in that game, but I was just playing. It's like a well-oiled machine at that point. Exactly what your plays are, and what you're doing in each scenario.
Yeah, well, with those game twos, my opponents chose to go first. So game one and game two were completely different matches.
Yeah.
And going second requires me to like think a lot more because I just can't pop off like I normally would if I go first. And that's probably a reason why I can't really remember those matches too well. But yeah, going 2-0 into my top four match, I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening.
It's so cool. It's so unbelievable, isn't it? As well, like I keep going back to that word, like unbelievable, because you don't think that's what's going to be happening when you're playing, do you?
Yeah. And the thing is about that top four match is during game two, if people know this or not, Ritzy was playing in the other top four match, and we knew that he won his top four match and was going into the final. So whoever won out of me and my opponent in our top four match was going to Worlds.
Wow.
Yeah. So as soon as I won that top four match, I just stood up from my seat, looked at my mate, and we just stared at each other in disbelief. We're just like, oh my God, I'm going to Worlds.
At what point in the top four did you actually find out that Ritzy had won, and you knew that like whoever was going to win this top four match was going to Worlds?
I believe it was during our game two match.
So the confidence that fills you with knowing you're already 1-0 up, you're already partway through a game, and you know the matchup, you know the deck, you've played it before. That feeling must. I mean, if you could bottle that, you'd make millions, right?
Well, that's the thing. Like, yes, I was one match up, and yes, I was feeling slightly confident that I knew the matchup and what I needed to do. But as soon as we found out that Ritzy won, and whoever was going to win out of us two is going to Worlds, the nerves just flew to the roof, and I was just, oh my gosh, like it's just crazy.
Yeah. Oh, that's a
Kind of hard to think at that point.
Did you say you didn't know how to think at that point?
It just makes it harder to think.
Yeah.
The nerves just start to make me tremble that little bit more.
Yeah, and a game like Dragon Ball as well, where so much thinking is involved, and so much of it is about how much you strategize going into like turn one. You're thinking already what you're doing turn five, turn six. So all of that, like, it kind of almost goes out the window, doesn't it, when those nerves kick in? Because you're almost kind of going, I'm just playing in the moment now. I'm just playing whatever is happening in front of me and hoping for the best.
Yeah, that's right. And as soon as I won, and my friend and I just stared at each other, we're just like, oh my gosh, you actually did it, and you're going to Worlds. The judge was right there, and he's like, sit down, get ready for your final match. And I was just like, oh my gosh, sorry, I'm freaking out a little bit.
You're like, look, it doesn't matter about the final match anymore, mate. I've just qualified. Let me have my moment in the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. He's like, yeah, sit down. You've got a finals match, but you want to just celebrate in that moment, don't you? Like, whatever happens in this final is now whatever because I'm going to Worlds.
Pretty much. Yeah, the whole match in the final, I think the same line was just running through my head. I was just like, "Oh my god, I'm going to Worlds. Oh my god, I'm going to Worlds." And like my friend was watching me play. He said, "Dude, you were shaking like a leaf that whole match. Like, what was wrong with you?"
Well, it was clearly what was right with you because you just qualified for Worlds.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess that's right.
And what do you recall from the final? Is there much for as weird as it sounds? Is there much for us even to talk about with the final game?
Yeah, I guess we could talk about it. Um, Ritzy was undefeated in Swiss, so he had first seed and he chose to go first.
Yeah.
It was a very back and forth game. It was quite 50-50 the whole time, but I just noticed my hand was getting a little bit smaller while his hand was just sort of staying the same.
Hmm.
And just by like turn 5, turn 6, he was just starting to outvalue me, just floodgating me every turn and just got the upper hand. Um, Game 2, I chose to go first, and I got him down to 1 life on like my turn 2 or turn 3, and I was just like, okay, I've got this match in the bag. um, but somehow he just kept doing the same thing as game 1. He just kept floodgating me every turn, and just crawled his way back into the game, and I ended up losing that match somehow, and I lost 2-0. Um, and my friends saw my hand. They're like, "What are you doing? Like, you could have pushed for game, like on your last turn. Like, why didn't you?" It's just, I don't know. I guess I'm just not thinking straight since I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to Worlds."
Yeah. It's almost what made me say like what much have we got to talk about there because yeah you had a game but all of it almost seemed almost obviously you get like the championship and you can say you finished first but the true prize is already there, isn't it? So I imagine all that's going through your head at that time is just I'm going to Worlds. So like yeah I could have pushed for game. I didn't really think about it because I was thinking about I was thinking about going to Worlds.
Hmm. I obviously getting first place would have been nice, and I did try to win. But Rizzi, he's obviously a great player, and he beat me fair and square.
Yeah.
Um, at the end of the day, I don't really mind too much because I'm still getting my Worlds invite and happy days.
Yeah, and it's really nice to hear that as well that you guys had like a really like you still had a really like nice game. I know that the community at large has a lot to say on that one, and it's it's all very controversial stuff, but we don't know unless you're actually one sitting down playing that game and. Yeah, you like. It sounds like a very good and healthy experience you guys had playing there.
Yeah, yeah. Like honestly, I don't have anything ill to say about Rizzi, or I I think he's a great guy. Like we spoke a few times here and there, and he's a perfectly nice guy, and I don't blame him for coming to our Nats. Like I would do the same thing if I had the chance. I would travel around the world and go to other nationals if I could.
Yeah, and absolutely, I'm there with you as well. Like, Ollie and Pete went out to France, and I got a bit of FOMO about the idea that I wasn't getting the chance to play, and like we've not had many events here as well, so I'm absolutely in the same boat there, where I'm like, I'd happily get out there if it gave me the chance to play in a few events. So, no, that's wonderful, and thank you so much for your really thorough tournament run breakdown there as well. I think that was really insightful. I love like we got the actual interactions in the games, but also a bit about what was going on in your head as well when you were playing as well. Um, what I want to ask next of you, Dean, and we touched on it a little bit as we were going through there, is um, about Oceania as a region in general. And I feel like Oceania, we spoke a little bit before we started recording anyway on this, that Oceania is a very underappreciated region when it comes to Dragon Ball. A lot of players look at it and they go, "There's 55 players. There's a Beerus ramp in top 8. There's 2 Zamasu mills. These guys are so unserious." Whereas I feel like there is a lot of very, very talented players in the region, and the tournament runs can be really, really brutal. In fact, can you talk a little bit to that from your own experience of like what it's like playing out in Oceania, and what the Dragon Ball scene is like out there?
Yeah, Oceania, we don't have a lot of players like other regions do, and that's probably why other people think like Oceania is an easier region because there's not as many players, and that does make sense. But because we don't have that many players, all of those players are committed players that put a lot of time into playing the game. So even though our nationals only had 50 to 60 players, it is no easy feat getting top 16 or even top 8 into top cut. Like we see these players, the same group of players that play in every regionals, every nationals, every competitive event, we see the same players, no doubt, because these are committed players and they're all good players. But when it comes to the amount of regionals that we only had 3 regionals all year, which all of us would love to see more than that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And when it comes to locals, there's not much going around. Maybe there's like a few here and there with average 8 players or so. But if you look for them, you can still find a local scene here and there, which is nice.
Yeah. And what do you do for your local scene? Do you have a local scene, or do you more rely on webcam games to keep your skills up to scratch?
I more rely on webcam games just because my locals is a 30 to 40-minute drive away from me.
Yeah.
And because of that reason, I just prefer to play at home on webcam or even untap, possibly.
Yeah, no, absolutely makes sense. I really appreciate that insight into the region as well. Like it's something that I've kind of, as I say, we picked up on it a little bit beforehand, but we've got, you played a world's competitor in round 2 in Australia. For example, the 2 Zamasus that topped, you played both of those in Swiss as well. Robert Rizzi is a world's competitor, and a multiple-time regional champion. Like that's a completely stacked roster of players, and even at a low round total of like 5 rounds, playing through that.
5 rounds in Swiss.
Yeah, 5 rounds of Swiss against 5 incredibly talented players is a lot harder than X2 through 8 rounds, where the first 4 rounds you kind of play a bit of filler content for a few rounds, and then it gets to some really top end players in a lot of these tournament runs.
Yeah, and our nationals technically there probably should have been 6 rounds because the pair down lost, and then the Swiss ended after 5 rounds.
Yeah.
Mm.
Amazing. Right, so that's the whole tournament run there. That's like everything encapsulated. Before we get on to Dragon Ball's Den, is there any shout outs, any closing thoughts, anything that you want to let out to our listeners here, Dean?
Yeah, I'd love to shout out my little testing group. Without them, I don't even have the cards for Oceanus. I borrowed, I think, 80% of the deck from a friend. So huge shout out to him, Mike, and all the other boys who just helped test with me and without fail. Like we're always talking. They're just like, come over, let's have some games. And so huge shout out to those boys, and shout out to you as well for having me on the channel.
You're more than welcome. It's been, like, I mean, first time we've done a guest appearance, and you've been an absolute pleasure to have on. As I said before, the insight is just incredible. I've absolutely loved catching up with you here. And thank you so much for your time as well. Dean is currently in Melbourne at the minute. He's just worked a full night shift, so it is 7 a.m. Local time for you after a full night shift, and you have still agreed to come and sit here and talk with us about your regional run, which is phenomenal. I really, really am. I'm so delighted you took the time out to come and talk to us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Right. With that said, what we're going to be doing on the channel here, everyone, is as we have any guest appearances, we're also going to be letting them into our special segment, Dragon Ball's Den. So Dean, actually, one of the first questions Dean asked of me when he reached out a few weeks back was, how do I get my submission on Dragon Ball's Den? How do I put forward my card design idea? And admittedly, he took the long way round of, competing, qualifying for Worlds, and earning himself a guest appearance here. But what we're going to do is Dean is going to tell us what his support card is, what deck he's supporting. I'm going to give him 2 minutes now to explain it. And then what we're going to do is, as we're filming, I'm going to rejoin Ollie and Pete through the power of editing. And we're all going to give our views, as we normally do, on Dean's card and see if we are willing to invest. So, Dean, what deck will you be supporting in Dragon Ball's Den?
I thought it was just going to be you who was going to be telling me how you feel, but now that I know that Ollie and Peter are going to be here, that's just some added pressure.
This is how the Dragons operate. We operate in numbers. Like, you're not going to get it easy. If you've got something worth investing in, you got to talk to all of us about it, or at least be judged by all of us.
Yeah. Well, the deck I'm going to support is one of my old favorites, and I feel like blue needs a little bit of help. So I'm decided to. I've got the card here, if you guys can see that.
Oh, incredible!
The Vegito starter from starter deck 12, so quite a while ago.
BT10 starter decks, wasn't it? I believe Vegito came out. It was when they first started flipping back to monocolor as opposed to the multicolor stuff.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, awesome.
This was a deck that I first took to my. I think I played in my very first competitive event with this deck. It was like a winner box online tournament.
Yeah.
And I ended up losing to the green reboot Gohan deck in the final.
Boo!
It was just so aggro, that deck.
My all-time least favorite deck is Reboot Gohan. It haunts me still to this day where I'm trying to play my silly little Fun Cell Surge deck and getting absolutely bodied over and over again.
So shall we get into the card?
Yep, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get our timer set up for you now. And I will give you your 2 minutes to pitch your case for your card, which is going to be supporting Starter Deck 12 Blue Vegito Leader. Your time, Dean, starts now.
Okay, so the card name is Son Goku and Vegeta up against Immortality. Since it's like the theme of them versus Zamasu and Goku Black. So 2-cost blue unison with 16k power. It has an auto once per turn. When this card attacks, if your leader has Vegito in its card name, switch this card to active mode.
Yeah.
So the reason why I love that auto with this leader is that this leader is able to give your unison plus 10,000 and triple strike during a battle. And since you're able to restand it once per turn, you have 2 opportunities to do that. You give your unison plus 10k and triple strike for the battle.
Amazing.
Yeah. So the other one is a +1 activate main. Very simple one, just draw 1 card.
Yeah.
Sometimes this deck can struggle with hand size, so I just decided to give it a draw 1. And it has a very unique -2 activate battle. I don't think any other card has this in the game yet, but I've decided to. So what it says is you may activate a Z extra card with an energy cost of 1 from your Z deck without paying its energy cost or Z energy cost. For a -2 activate battle. And why I like that is because it's kind of thematic as well, because the one you're always going to want to go into is the Goku Black Kamehameha one. So it's kind of thematic with Vegito, Goku and Vegeta, and then Goku Black. They're all like battling it out. And that card can just help you push as well if you decide to give your leader the unison plus 10,000 and triple strike for the battle.
Amazing. And that is your 2 minutes there, Dean. What an incredible card design.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I hope you guys like it.
Yeah. So at this point, we're going to be flipping back on over to the 3 of us on the screen, and we're going to be discussing whether we're going to invest in this this idea. I already, as a spoiler warning, feel pretty good about this, and I know I sit on a panel with some very esteemed blue players as well. So you'll have to stay listening, stay tuned to hear what we are going to say about that. But I'm going to wrap up this segment now because Dean, bless him, he needs to get into bed because he is absolutely shattered. But once again, a massive, massive thank you for coming on and talking to me today, Dean. All the best, and we are going to be watching you and your appearance at Worlds. We are so, so excited for you.
I am so, so excited as well. Can't wait.
Amazing. Catch you all over at the next segment. So that is Dean's submission to Dragon Ball's Den. And as we said, the 3 of us, now we're all back together and assembled. We're ready to have a bit of a discussion on what we think about this unison. I may have given a couple of spoilers away while I was talking to Dean about what my thoughts are, but we've got 2 seasoned blue professionals here in the chat with me, so I'm more excited to hear from these guys. Pete, I'm going to start with you first. What do you think to this card?
So, funny enough, I've actually played this leader quite a lot. I was a huge fan of this leader. I played it before Sensu Bean got errated, because I really liked, because when I was playing it, there wasn't really any interaction for removing markers. So what I would do is I'd swing. If there was no negates, I would like bean up and basically give it the triple strike and the boost. And you could keep paying 2 because it wasn't once per turn or once per battle. So you could keep giving the boost. So that's, like, I liked that. It was cool, and it was a nice way of killing with unisons. So I already liked the deck anyway. And that's obviously, we had all the draft box cards to support it, like the 1 cost. Is it Dr. whatever the like hog guy is?
Yeah, Dr. I don't remember what it's called.
One of the doctors.
It's the
anyway.
dog. Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously in I think a couple of sets later, we had the Oob, which you could play for free or 1 energy that would draw a card if you got a unison in play, and it was a blocker.
It was a free play one, wasn't it?
Free play.
All the colours had one.
Yeah, but obviously, again, because of your awakening condition and drawing and whatnot, it was a kind of a cool interaction because you would draw for the blocker, and then when it dies on your opponent's turn, you draw 1 and untap 1. If my memory is correct, it has been a while since I've played with that leader. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the leader anyway, so any support for it is probably going to get my vote by default. This particular one, I think, is actually really good. It's basically a dual attacker with the leader, which I like, because obviously if you swing with it and the negate, then your whole gimmick about your unison power-up is gone. Where when you obviously swing with your leader and restands it, so that's really cool. Obviously the draw power is always nice. The minus is very unique. I don't really have any like massive opinion about the minus effect. Like, I think it's that I think it will like work as a surprise factor if you're going all in. But I think most of the time you've probably got enough energy just to bring out a Kamehameha. But what you could do is with enough energy, technically, you could pop one and then use that -2. Oh no, because it would lose the power boost from the last Z extra. So yeah, you couldn't do it in the way I was thinking about initially. So yeah, I think it's really cool. I've kind of just wrapped it on, but yeah, I'm a big fan of the card. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I really like that. Like 10k plus triple doesn't feel like crazy oppressive or anything like that, but it just gives like a really like strong play to the deck when you get that unison down. And like that -2 can like help you really push the triple strike damage off of the unison. And I really like how much Dean thought about the theme of it as well. Like the whole like Goku and Vegeta together on the unison. You're playing like the Goku Black Kamehameha out, so you're like signifying the fight between the that like, the Vegito comes from like the Zamasu Vegito fight from the show. And it's not like one of these like you play it and it does the most crazy ridiculous thing, but it needs to do that because it's an old deck. Like it really is in keeping and still powerful. There's a really nice balance to it, is what I'm getting at. So I'm a massive fan of it as well, even as not much of a blue player. It's a really nice thought out card. Ollie, your assessment.
Right, I'm here to shit on your guys' dreams. Nah, I'm just kidding.
We need a bit of controversy in our lives. Go for it.
No, unfortunately, I also really like the card as well. I can't stir things up too much. But I like the card for a couple of reasons. Obviously, like you mentioned, the thematics of it are really cool, as much as I might not understand them as well. The first thing I did when we watched the video, unfortunately we didn't get our live reactions to it, but my face did a bit of contorting when I heard about the second skill, the -2. And I immediately went on DBS Deck Planet and was like, I swear there's some Janemba Z extra cards that you can bring out that do some dumb shit, like bottom decking cards mid-battle, and I had a quick look through them and all of them are leader locked, thank God. So that is fine. Like, all of the Z extras that I had a look at are like pretty much leader locked apart from the Goku Black one, so it is, like Dean said, pretty much just going to be that Goku Black one, which is really cool. But it does obviously offer up potential options for the future. And because it's such an old deck, it doesn't have natural ways to build Z energy, so I think like skipping the Z energy on the Z extra plays is really cool as well. Because like it might mean that you actually get to resolve the 3 Z energy skill in a game of the Goku Black Z extra rather than generally just going for the 1 Z energy thing. I also really like the fact that it's a minus skill on the unison in Activate Battle, because I just had a quick reread of the leader. And this is always a leader that I wanted to play, but at the time I did not have nearly enough money to buy any of the cards that you could play in the deck, because you needed like Abunis and stuff. And
I had all them.
Yeah. COVID had just hit and I wasn't old enough to even get a job yet, so I was just like, oh, I'm just leaving it. I'll buy one, like I'll buy a Sinshen one.
Making me feel old now.
Yeah. So I always wanted to play the deck, so I am a big fan of the leader. It's really cool. And I like the fact that it's a minus skill in Activate Battle, because like it gives you the potential to sack off your own unison with the -2 skill, so that you can trigger your leader's auto to get the untap 1, draw 1, or whatever it is, on the opponent's turn.
Yeah.
I think the only criticism I have about the card is that I would have really liked to have seen it have blocker as well, because I think it could have like, I think it could even have that extra push because the deck's kind of built around blockers, and you can then potentially like kill off your unison a bit easier. But like that's not even much of a criticism because it's not saying it's very broken. I think it could even have a little bit more to it that would be really cool.
Boundary a bit more of it.
Yeah. And again, I like the fact that it's a main deck unison because Z unisons don't trigger the leader skill and the deck doesn't build Z energy. So yeah, all around, I think it's a great card. I'd be very happy investing in this one. It's yeah. Oh, also the fact if it's a blocker, then the restand has more utility as well. Because you can like triple strike them and then swing leader and restand it and just have it as a blocker.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty easy invest from me as well here. It's just a really nicely designed card. I like it. Very neat.
Yeah.
Pete.
Yeah.
Wow.
Definitely investing, mate. Definitely. It's 100% a card I'd like to see.
Unanimous investment from here.
Good thing to see that we've got big faith in the world's representatives this year then.
Hey, it'll be interesting to see if this is kind of like what ends up being like. Imagine this being like a sneak peek into like the potential worlds. Oh, sorry. Technically, there's no world card anymore. We'll get to that.
That's for next episode, guys.
That's for next week. But that would have been, yeah. Okay, yeah. I was gonna say it's gonna be a sneak peek to that, but I guess not anymore, right?
Yeah. Rest in peace.
About it. Let's just hope that it's not on the website, but it's still a thing that's happening, so we can keep that dream alive.
Yeah, they do tend to do that, don't they?
Yeah, we're giving you a
technically the pictures of it on cut sheets are still not on the website. Technically.
And they only just updated the ban list as well, like 4 months after Pete asked for it. So
multiple times.
Let's keep our hearts open to the idea that we're letting you in on what the potential world's designed card could be. That's a lovely dream, and I want to keep hold of it. Speaking of which, gentlemen, we've come to an end of this episode here. But next episode, we've got a pretty exciting treat in store for you. It is our pre-Christmas episode. We're going to be taking a week off over New Year as well to get our celebrations in, and then hitting you back up on the 5th of Jan will be the episode after next week as well that we'll be recording. And next week, we may also have another guest appearance and another guest to Dragon Ball's Den, and also another potential insight into what someone might design as their worlds card if it's still happening. That's the carrot I'm going to dangle for you. So make sure you tune in next time to see who may well be joining us for that. Otherwise, gentlemen, do we have anything left to say to everyone before we sign off?
I gotta give a big shout out and thanks to Dean for joining us on the episode. I think I think we've talked about the idea of having guests on for a little while, and it's always been something like this would be really cool to do, but we're gonna have to like get some people who are interested to do it. And so yeah, it's great to have someone who's like obviously done super well, and massive congratulations to him. And who wanted to hop on with us is sick.
Yeah, I think I want to really echo that sentiment as well. Like in the actual interview itself, I know I've kind of done a bit of like waxing lyrical about Dean joining us, but like genuinely a pleasure to chat to. We had an absolute blast going over like his experience, and all round lovely guy. And I couldn't be happier to have him be the first guest to join us on the channel, even if it was in a bit more of a creative setting because of the other commitments that we had with European finals coming up.
Yeah, and I guess I echo that echo, right? echo. But no, I think I'm looking. I as Ollie said, we discussed about obviously guests and stuff. You know, a bit like how we've done the community Dragons Den. And I think that works really well, and I think this does as well. So I'm looking forward. We've kind of caught it at a good time because we've got finals coming up. Obviously, we've got good opportunities to interview, some winners and have them on the show and see how it goes.
What we'll do then is we'll leave it there for now. We will see you all again next week.
Bye.
Bye.